You finally sit down. The work is done, or at least done enough. You've earned this. A quiet evening, a show you've been meaning to watch, maybe just 10 minutes of doing absolutely nothing. But the moment your body settles into the couch, something tightens in your chest, a whisper you can't quite ignore. You should be doing something. This feels wrong, like you're getting away with something you shouldn't. So you check your phone, you make a mental list, you fold laundry while watching the show just so it feels productive, and even then, even with your hands busy, the guilt doesn't fully leave. This isn't laziness. It isn't a lack of discipline. In fact, it's often the opposite. This is what happens when rest was never taught to you as something you deserve, only as something you have to earn. And somewhere along the way, the price got too high. If you feel guilty when you rest, you are not broken. You are not weak or ungrateful or wasting your potential. Your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do. It learned, probably very early, that stillness was dangerous, that slowing down meant falling behind, that your value was measured not by who you were, but by what you produced. And now, even when you want to rest, your nervous system doesn't quite believe it's safe. This is not a flaw. This is adaptation. And understanding it might just be the gentlest thing you do for yourself today. For many people, this begins in childhood. Maybe rest was treated as something you had to justify. Sitting still meant you weren't helping. Relaxing in your room meant you were being lazy. Perhaps praise only came when you achieved something. Good grades, clean rooms, finished chores, and never for simply being. This is what psychologists sometimes call conditional worth, the belief that love, approval, or safety depends on performance. And when this is your earliest programming, rest doesn't just feel unnecessary, it feels threatening. Like the moment you stop moving, you stop mattering. Think of the child who learned to read their parents' mood before asking for anything, who kept busy to avoid criticism, who became very, very good at being useful. That child didn't disappear. They just grew up. And now they're sitting on a couch trying to relax while their body hums with the old fear that stillness will cost them something. There's another layer here, and it runs deep. For some people, doing became who they are, not just what they do, but their entire sense of self, the worker, the reliable one, the one who always shows up, the one who never lets people down. When your identity is built on productivity, rest isn't just uncomfortable. It's destabilizing, because if you're not doing, then who are you? This is why burnout often triggers an identity crisis. The exhaustion forces you to stop, and in that stillness, there's a terrifying silence where your sense of self used to be. So you push through, you keep going, not because you want to, but because stopping feels like disappearing. But here's the part nobody tells you. This guilt isn't always a thought. Sometimes it's a sensation, a restlessness in the body, a low-grade hum of anxiety the moment you try to slow down. This is your nervous system. When it's been conditioned to associate stillness with danger, it doesn't distinguish between real threat and the absence of movement. It just responds. Adrenaline, tension, the urge to get up and do something, anything to relieve the discomfort. You might have noticed this in small moments. The inability to sit through a movie without your phone, the way your leg bounces when there's nothing to fix, the strange irritability that shows up on vacation. That's not weakness. That's a body that was never taught how to be still without scanning for danger. And then there's the world around you. We live in a culture that glorifies exhaustion, where busy is a badge, where rest is often framed as something you earn after suffering enough. Hustle culture didn't invent this guilt, but it certainly feeds it. You've probably seen it, the posts about waking up at 5 a.m., the subtle competition over who has less free time, the idea that rest is a reward, not a need. When this message is everywhere, in your feeds, your workplaces, your conversations, it becomes very hard to believe that you are allowed to stop. Something interesting happens as you get older. The same guilt begins to feel different. In your 20s, it might have driven you, kept you sharp, made you successful. But somewhere in your 30s or 40s, it starts to feel heavier. The returns diminish, the body resists, and the question shifts from how do I keep going to why can't I stop? This is not regression, it's awareness. You're not getting worse at life, you're getting more honest about what it's costing you. The guilt hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has. Here's the truth underneath it all. Rest feels unsafe because stillness means feeling. And for many people, constant motion is a way of outrunning what's underneath. Grief, fear, loneliness, the quiet ache of not knowing if you're enough.
Productivity becomes an anchor, a way to stay in control. As long as you're doing, you don't have to sit with the parts of you that hurt. As long as there's a task, there's a distraction. The guilt, in a strange way, is protective. It keeps you moving, and sometimes moving is how you survive. So if rest feels uncomfortable, it's not because you're failing. It might be because your mind learned long ago that staying busy was the safest place to be. You don't need to fix this, not right now, maybe not ever in the way you think. What you feel when you try to rest is not a sign that you're broken. It's the echo of a belief that once helped you survive. You learned that love came with conditions, that stillness was dangerous, that your worth depended on what you gave. And in many ways, that belief kept you going. But you're allowed to question it now, not to shame it, not to force yourself to change, just to notice, to see the child who learned to stay useful in order to stay safe, to offer them something they may never have received, permission, not to do more, not to try harder, just to be. You are not your productivity. You never were. And one day, maybe not today, rest might start to feel like something you're allowed.